Okay everyone, editing Joshua here. Before the video begins, I would just like to give a few disclaimers. One, this is a few months late, and this was when the movie was out in theaters, so this is why you're kind of seeing this a little late. Second of all, this was recorded in a different location on StreamYard before in my new area. So, if you do see a different change in background and quality, please do not be alarmed. There you go, and enjoy the video. Well, this is not the best location for me to talk about this movie, but I've held off on this long enough. What's going on, everyone? Is Joshua from Future Filmmaker Reviews. I talk movies, TV, music, and anime. We're here to discuss the latest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the first of Phase 5, and that is going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, or Ant-Man 3, released not too long ago, February 17th. This is directed once again by Peyton Reed. This time it is not written by Paul Rudd. This is written by one of the writers of Rick and Morty. This stars Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Catherine Newton, Michelle Pfeiffer, Michael Douglas, David Dastmalchian, and of course Jonathan Majors as a new guy. And without giving away anything, because this is still relatively new, Ant-Man and the Wasp find themselves exploring the quantum realm, interacting with strange new creatures, and embarking on a new adventure that pushes them beyond the limits of what they thought was possible, while also having to do with a new baddie in the form of Kang the Conqueror, played by the great Jonathan Majors. So when it comes to Marvel, the Cinematic Universe overall, and to Ant-Man, of course I was pretty interested in another Ant-Man movie, but I did have some concerns going into this because this wasn't going to have Michael Pena or T.I., and of course this was not going to be written by Paul Rudd. Then they had the writer of Rick and Morty come on, which I am a big fan of Rick and Morty. I became pretty interested, but what didn't interest me that much was the fact that we're going to be using Kang the Conqueror as the villain instead of someone else for the villain. Because if you guys know me, and maybe this might surprise a lot of you guys, but I am not a Kang the Conqueror fan. I think he's pretty lame, he's pretty dull, he's boring, and he just has nothing awesome about him. Maybe in the few cartoons I've seen him in, he's fine, but I didn't even bother to see him in Loki, and I didn't care because he's just a boring ass character for me.
Oh man, he's a deep shit!
One horrible idea after another!
But that had me concerned. But I was also still intrigued to see what they were going to do with the quantum realm. And this was going to be the first movie of Phase 5. Phase 4, like I said, I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. I still have to do the tier list of Phase 4, the movies. But I did enjoy what I did get out of it. You have some good stuff like WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness and Shang-Chi and No Way Home. And of course Wakanda Forever, and maybe TV shows like Falcon and Winter Soldier and Ms. Marvel. Then you have frustrating stuff like Moon Knight and Black Widow and Thor and Love and Thunder and Eternals. I'm just on the verge of kind of hating the more I think about it. But when it comes to Quantumania, I wanted to give this movie a chance and see what the fuss was about, because this movie is garnered a mixed reaction so far. Some people are not loving this movie. A lot of people are saying this is the worst movie ever made. We're going to talk about my personal thoughts and see what I have to say about this movie, because I don't think this movie is that bad as everyone says it is. It's not the movie that we all wanted, but I don't think the movie is that bad. This is a movie, of course, that is not going to be the greatest thing ever, but I went into this movie optimistic, despite my reservations with Kang the Conqueror, who I thought was just going to be boring as hell. And also, not to mention with the casting decision of Cassie Lang with the original actress, and not to mention the fact that they were going to try and bring Kate Bishop into this, which thank God that didn't happen, because this would even be a way worse movie for me. But I have seen the movie, I have sat on it, which is why it took me so long to get this out. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't hate this movie. I don't love the movie, but overall, I can say for the start of Phase 5, I think this movie is fine. The weakest, I do think, of the Ant-Man movies. Let me get to the things I like first, because there is some things in this movie I like. One, unlike what Phase 4, even though I appreciate some stuff in Phase 4, I will say the first positive is I do think this does give us more of a clear, cohesive view of where we're going into the multiverse side of the MCU. I know some people are versus with this, Everything Everywhere All at Once, DC trying it, also the Spider-Verse movies, but I just think it's something new, it's something fresh for them. It's not going to work for everyone personally, but I appreciate the fact that we're going in. We have more of a clear headed side here. Emotional weight for me personally, when it's there, it does work personally, and it never forgets what this franchise is. Ant-Man and his family has always been the heart of this trilogy since day one, soon to be quadrilogy, and this movie does not forget about that. It does know exactly that this is a Ant-Man movie, and it runs with it. And I very much appreciate the fact that it does go along with that. Because without Ant-Man, this would not be what it is. And Ant-Man, I don't mind the fact that he's went from small scale to Avengers somewhat type style level of that. I will get to my criticisms about that a little bit, but I overall do like the fact that they would want to do something a little bit different. The performances I still really like. Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly as Ant-Man and the Wasp, they are still very good respectively. I do have issues when it comes to Wasp. Nothing to do with Evangeline Lilly or any of that stuff, but she was great here. She does have a haircut here that's like the comics, but I did like her new suit. I thought she was still badass for what little she's able to do in this. Paul Rudd is Ant-Man. He's great, and I thought his performance is very strong here. He's always bringing his comedic talent. He has a sense of charm, a sense of likability, and you do like him in this role here, and I definitely do like his performance here. I would also say some of the other performances, like David Osmashian as this new character. You have this Asian girl, Quintera. I can't think of the actress right now, but I thought she was good. I also really liked Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer in this movie. Michelle Pfeiffer gets a lot more to do than what she did in the last one. But I definitely like the fact that they gave her more to chew on here. She was one of the most valuable players for me besides the part of Paul Rudd. And so I will say she did a very good job here. So the cast overall, there's one person I have not mentioned yet, but I'll get to him. Also, despite all the drama going on with a lot of these mixed reviews, I personally thought Catherine Newton did a solid job as Cassie Lang's Thatcher. It would have helped if we kept Emma Furman and see what she was going to do with this. That does annoy me a little bit, but recasting happens all the time, so it's something we just have to get used to. Some people say she's not very good in it. I thought she did fine for what she was able to do with this. She is a little bratty, she is a little whiny, but she is playing Cassie Lang, and she does do a good job in it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they improve on her in the MCU. Even if we don't get a Young Avengers movie, I will say she's probably my favorite of the Young Avengers. Because so far, I don't mind Billy and Tommy. America Chavez was cool. I hate Ironheart. I cannot stand that character Ironheart. And Haley is Kate Bishop. Let's see what they do with her next year, and then we'll talk. Because right now, I still have a love-hate relationship with her, even though I don't hate her as much in Hawkeye anymore. Also, there are some fun action moments, and the effects look good for the most part, and it is very Star Wars, Rick and Morty plus Spy Kids vibes in the quantum realm. So there's a lot of effects or the CGI, and I know people criticize Marvel for the visual effects thing, and there are some effects here that it is very noticeable because they do need more time, which gratefully they're going to be pushing back some of their other projects to do so. But overall, I will say that I thought for what the effects team had to do, the $200 million budget looks pretty good here. A very nice looking movie, some good cinematography in this movie. I do like the production design, and the score of the movie is very Ant-Man-esque, but also taking it into some new heights. So I will give the movie that. I do think the movie should get some credibility for that. I definitely do appreciate that type of style in this movie. Also, I will say the direction once again is strong by Peyton Reed. This time he has a lot more to chew on. He has a lot more control after owning it from the first two movies. And he just gets to play in the little Rick and Morty quantum realm sandbox. And it's very fun to see that. I definitely do admire that. And I definitely do appreciate the fact that they actually tried to go for something a little bit more different. Into the mixed aspects of this movie, I will say that the character of MODOK, this has been getting a very mixed reception. I didn't hate MODOK. I didn't love him. I just thought he was way too weird for a movie like this. Now, I've heard that the character has been weird always in the comics and even in other cartoons, but this is what I have to say, and I've said this again a few times, correct me if I'm wrong, some things don't transfer well from book to film, and this is one of those prime examples that it just didn't work. Now, the voice they got is fine, but I just felt like this character did not need to be in here. Same with Bill Murray. Putting the allegations and controversies against him aside, I don't think he was necessary to this movie either, much like with Dominique Thorne in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But he did fine. It was nice to see him again, even though it's hard watching a few of his stuff because of the stuff that's come out with him over the years, especially with him not getting along with actors like Lucy Liu and certain dramas that he has.
Oh my god!
The hell, man?
Oh my god!
The ending is a little bit weird for me. In one end, I do appreciate the way this is going, but at the other end, I just feel like, okay, you could have done more there. Also, I felt like there should have been a little bit more of emotional stakes. Like, have someone in this family die. Like, if Michael Douglas' character would have died, or Michelle Pfeiffer or something. Yes, I know it would be pissing off people who are fans of those two characters, but I feel like someone in Ant-Man's family that he loves and cares so deeply about should have died. And you do miss T.I., Michael Pena, Judy Greer, and such, but I'm fine with them not being here. Maybe next time they'll show up. So I will say that is a little or whatever. The first half is a bit weird to get through. The first half is a little bit crazy to get through. I will give you that. So it is a little bit crazy to get through here, so there I will say that you could have done better when it comes to the first act. Structure it a little better because this is only 2 hours and 6 minutes. Could have just trimmed some of that down a little bit. So with that, I will say you could have done better with that. After that, when the second and third act kicks in, the movie becomes a lot more stronger and a lot more entertaining to get through. And now I'm moving into my criticism with this and the writing here. Not the writer. Jeff Loveness, he's a very strong writer. Watch Rick and Morty, he does a very good job there, and I'm happy they're going to keep him on for Avengers 5. Yeah, I don't mind that you have the writer of this movie being the writer of Rick and Morty, since I love that show. Some of the writing here is fine, but where the writing suffers for me in this movie is some of the traditional MCU comedy doesn't always hit, and the MCU has had this problem recently where some jokes hit, some jokes miss strongly, and I do feel like you could have benefited from having Paul Rudd in the writing room with the writer of Rick and Morty. You could have made a lot of the comedy work a lot more better. And it does take itself a little seriously, but it still maintains some of the Ant-Man humor we love. So it's a darker movie. I will give you that for the writing, going a little bit more darker whilst maintaining what Ant-Man is. But besides the traditional comedy not always hitting, this is the big problem. There is way too much exposition in this movie. What I mean by exposition is that there's way too much explanatory in this movie now. Granted, this is the quantum realm, we do have to explain some of the stuff in the multiverse and stuff. But when it comes down to it, it gets to a point where it's become expository overload. And Eternals had the same exact problem, where there was too much exposition and not enough show and tell. 101 when it comes to this, you show us certain things, you don't tell us. Then there's also the opposite, you tell us but don't show us. And I felt like you could have benefited from doing a mix of telling us and showing us about how the quantum realm stuff works. I'm sure it'll all be explained by the time we get to Kang's next big appearance, but some of the exposition kind of boggles this movie's down for me, and I wish there was a more explanatory way of doing so without having to force so much exposition in there. When it comes to this movie, there is some actors in this movie that could have had more to do. Like, you have Evangeline Lilly in her, who is great as a Wasp, one of my favorite celebrity crushes and one of my favorite MCU characters. I do wish she had a little bit more to do in this movie as the Wasp. Now, her scenes with Paul Rudd and her, they're great together for what little they have. I just feel like they needed more to do in this movie. And that was a big disappointment, considering how much I really loved Evangeline's character in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And the little bit she had in Endgame. And it was disappointing to see her screen time being reduced a little bit. So when you do an Ant-Man 4, learn from that mistake, give Evangeline Lilly more to do with Paul Rudd and Captain Newton. Also, while I don't mind Catherine Newton, there are times where she does become a little bit insufferable at points. She's not bad in the movie, she's great in the movie. I just feel like some of her character decisions become a little bit. She gets it from her dad, so I can't really fault too much here. Also, there are some effects work that like I said, you could definitely use a little bit more time for that. So I definitely do have to agree with people there with some of the effects work being a little bit PlayStation-y and a little bit weirdest. Moving on to my biggest criticism of this, and that is Kang the Conqueror himself. Now, I've had plenty of time to sit on this character, and even with me still not loving this character, I will say that Jonathan Majors does a fine job in the role as Kang the Conqueror. He's threatening, he's intimidating, he's awesome. Not in the movie very much, but that's fine with me since I don't really love Kang the Conqueror anyways. But this is a character I am going to have to take some getting used to, despite my huge issues with him that he's not in the movie enough. Or he kind of just overtakes this movie from Ant-Man and the Wasp. And that is one of my biggest issues when it comes to Kang the Conqueror in this movie. Again, Jonathan Majors is great in the movie. I just felt like he didn't need to overtake Ant-Man and the Wasp as much as he did. But Ant-Man is still a character in his own movie, so I will say he overshadows Kang by a landslide. It's just, Much like with Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop in the MCU, Jonathan Majors is a character as King the Conqueror is gonna be a character I'm gonna have to get used to. But the character I will not get used to, and who I will not tolerate going forward, is the Ironheart. I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen. You're not gonna give me the life. It's ruthless though, I will say that. Overall, this is the weakest of the Ant-Man movies so far, but it's not a bad movie. It's not top tier MCU, but it's not bottom tier either. It's right there in the middle, right next to something like Love and Thunder and Black Widow. This is not the movie I would choose to start Phase 5. I would have preferred if we started with either the Marvels or Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but we got those in May and this coming up November. So, in the end, I guess it kind of works. And if you're one of those people who doesn't want to go see it because you're sick of MCU or something, I would say give it a fair chance. You may like it, you may hate it, you might be like me in the middle. But I do enjoy the movie overall with issues and all. But for the third movie in the Ant-Man series, I wish this was better. That's all I'm saying. I wish this was better. But if I have to give this movie a grade, I will say you could stream this. But if you're a diehard MCU fan, I will say definitely check it out in theaters. You definitely have the option to do so. Not a bad movie, I just think it's the weakest Ant-Man movie for me. I still prefer the first movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, but I do not hate this movie. Well, that's going to do it for the video that you just watched. I will have my channel here, so you would like to see anything here. Click the channel icon, subscribe for more. I will also leave a video and maybe a playlist here, so in case you want to see what I'm about. As always, stay Epictasticness, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.